Hey everybody, welcome back to Movies and TV Shows on the Ball, and with me is I'm Steve, and with me is
Jay.
And on this episode, we talked about Blade last week,
right?
Or our last show, and as I promised, I was going to look at another way to kill a vampire in Buffy, starring Sarah MIchelle Gellher, and so Jay and I are completely new to Buffy the Vampire Slayer, so
right. Especially the TV show.
The TV show. Well,
right.
I knew that it kind of is loosely based on the film.
Yeah,
have you seen the film?
Can
you kind of give me sort of just a rundown on?
Yeah, so the basic rundown is there's Buffy, who is, I think in this one she's not part vampire. She is more of a prophecy, the chosen one.
That's kind of what they say in the show.
Yeah, okay, well, that's what the movie is. Okay. And so it's been a long time, but it basically is she's the chosen one, and then she sort of has a figure, come and sort of train her to slay vampires, and then she kills vampires.
Because I've watched the first episode of Buffy, the DVD, and it kind of has that same thing, but I kind of was watching it and falling asleep, or I get too distracted. But anyway.
But it's sort of killing vampires while also being, I think they're either in high school or college. So
are they in college in that one?
I can't remember exactly.
Because I know this one's more, she's a cheerleader in high school.
Okay. Yeah, I can't, it's either teens or early 20 and all the drama.
Buffy, the show, lasted, I think, Buffy, the show, lasted for about 3 seasons, I think. No, it lasted, actually, from 97 to 2003.
Okay.
So it had lasted 7 years, seven seasons. Yeah. So that was
also played the board game. I've also heard super good. I've heard this a very popular show.
Well, I've heard that people would see it was created by Joss Whedon, who did the Avengers.
Okay.
And he's been in a little bit of hot water recently because I guess he's been a little bit too touchy-feely with girls, or I don't know. I don't want to get into it, but I've heard that it is kind of got a really big following. And I actually, when I went to my first Comic-Con, and I met the Ninja Turtle guy that I told you when we did Ninja Turtles.
Right.
I met Spike, the guy that played Spike, who I knew from Smallville because I watched. He's the director in season 5, or he's the professor in season 5 and it ends up becoming Brainiac, or their Smallville Brainiac.
Yeah, the Smallville version.
And so I didn't know that much. I try to get to know enough what's going on, but I just was sort of, with our friend Jimmy. He's a huge Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan. Right. And so that was kind of the other, he kind of got me I'm kind of completely interested in.
No, I think I'm guessing it'd be sort of up your alley because it's sort of got the teen drama and sort of the action
vampire stuff. So it's kind of that One Tree Hill and beats, and it was on WB actually.
Right.
So
surprised you weren't all over it growing up.
Well, I think it hit 90. It was 97 to what, 2002?
I think you said
2 or 2003.
Something, yeah.
I think. Let's see. It was 97 to. I think it was 2003. So I kind of missed it. I knew of it,
right?
Because I was 9 when it came out, and
I guess
you kind of missed the. When we talked about when I did the video on One Tree Hill, it came out in 2003. Same thing with the OC that came out in 2003. Right. So we're gonna watch the first episode. Quick notice. This has starred. I guess before I kind of go through it. It starred it was created by Joss Whedon, who did the Avengers. It starred Sarah MIchelle Gellar, who's actually married to Freddie Prinze Jr. And she was also she played Daphne in Scooby-Doo. You also know her she played she gets killed off in Scream 2.
Okay.
She was in Cruel Intentions. I Know What You Did Last Summer. So a lot of like these horror
movies,
horror teen, Scream
right.
spinoffs. Recently, she's been in Clerks 3.
Nice.
She was in an episode of The Big Bang Theory. She was in an episode of Star Wars Rebel with her husband Freddie Prinze Jr., who's done a lot of voice work in Star Wars recently. She was also in an episode of The Simpsons and a television series that lasted one season, or I think maybe 2 seasons, called The Ringer, which lasted kind of 2011 to 2012. I think there's only one season. Yeah, it only lasted one season, so it's canceled too soon. So was it canceled too soon? So it also had, I guess, it also starred Harriet the Spy, Michelle Trachtenberg.
Oh, okay.
She plays, but she doesn't come in. I think she doesn't come into the series until like season 3. I mean, I know of her,
Right. I'm trying to remember, because I don't know. Is she like the wizard character?
I can't remember. Then there's Nicholas Brendon.
Okay.
Nicholas Brendon is pretty much known for films such as Judgment. He's recently been in Judgment. Let's see. Other than Buffy the Vampire Slayer, he's been in Psycho Beach Party, Attack of the Morningside Monster. So a lot of these, like, really, according to IMDb, he's got kind of like pretty, he's been in a lot of like episodes of like Without a Trace and episodes of Kitchen Confidential with Bradley Cooper that lasted 1 season. And he was also the voice as Xander Harrison in Buffy the Vampire the video game for Xbox.
Okay.
So yeah, so I mean he's done a lot. I mean it's kind of got a pretty good. I mean it's got Seth Green was actually in an episode in the series. Then Anthony Head, who he plays Giles, because I've watched the first episode already.
Right.
He's like the vampire, not hunter, but vampire.
Is he like the professor? Dude?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
yeah.
He like knows a bunch.
He shows the book.
Okay.
So those are kind of and he's been in Robot Chicken, and he did voice work in an Assassin's Creed video game.
Okay.
And he's been in Batman Gotham by Gaslight, which was an animated movie based on the comic. He was in Ghost Rider 2: Spirit of Vengeance.
I didn't know they made a Ghost Rider 2.
Yes, they did. And he was in Sweeney Todd, The Demon of Barber Street. So those are kind of the basic characters, I guess.
Okay.
So we'll get through, I guess, the first episode and give you a real quick rundown on our thoughts. Here we go. Welcome back, guys. We just finished the part 1, apparently, of the 2-part pilot. So I was I looked at it. I mean, I watched Smallville,
right.
The first pilot of Smallville, and it did bring me back to a lot of that's, Smallville kind of, the first pilot of Smallville really didn't have like didn't feel like a Superman thing.
Okay.
But with this one, it didn't feel like, it felt like, it's, I think what I'm saying is a lot of these, like teen action shows are pretty much monster story of the week.
Right.
And so this one pretty much sets up everything.
Right.
So pretty much we've got Buffy, Sarah MIchelle Gellher, who is best known. Did we say who?
Yeah, we went over that.
Oh, okay. Anyway, so Sarah MIchelle Gellher, she's Buffy. She's the new kid in school.
Right.
She basically you know, it's kind of it's basically her first day.
Yeah, first day of high school.
But she just moved to the town of Sunnydale, or Sunnydale?
Yeah, Sunnydale.
Sunnydale, USA. And it's pretty much this new it kind of goes through this new kid tropes where she sort of like doesn't know where her locker is. She knows where her locker is, but she is met by the principal pretty much talks to her.
Right.
And says that, you know, I'm glad you've chosen Sunnydale, you know.
Yeah, that's sort of like, they sort of like don't, you know, do like a whole origin story. It's sort of like they sort of tell you slowly throughout the context, like, you know, looking through her record, like you find out like she burned down her other school's gym
because we find out later
it's full of vampires.
Because they're full of vampires.
Right.
And she does say when but that was just full of vampires. It's like, and the principal is like,
she's like, oh no, asbestos.
And, yeah, and asbestos. And then the principal is just like, oh, don't worry about that. You'll be fine. He reminded me a little bit of Alice and Jenny in 10 Things I Hate About You, or you know how kind of whipped she is,
right.
or he is. But what I like about it is this kind of basically breaks up the main cast. She basically, and I like how it kind of sets it up because she's walking around school. She doesn't really know anything. She's a little lost. She meets her friend Cordelia.
Right, who's like the mean girl.
Mean girl. She is played by. She's played by. You keep going on.
Yeah, she sort of meets Cordelia. She's like, you know, as the mean girl, sort of has like a lot of the popular people with her. Then she meets Willow, who's sort of like
and Willow is played by Allison Hannigan, who's from How I Met Your Mother, and she was in American Pie.
Okay.
Cordelia is played by Charisma Carpenter, who I think is the daughter, of the let's see. I don't think she's related to Carpenter, the director, John Carpenter.
Oh, the spooky movie?
Yeah, spooky movie. I mean, that'd be kind of cool. But she's best known for, other than Buffy the Vampire Slayer, she was in The Expendables.
Okay.
Expendables 2.
I think I've seen those.
Episodes of Veronica Mars. And she has been in... she's been, let's see, Chicago PD recently, Sons of Anarchy. She was in CSI, like everybody else. And she was in episodes of Charm. So she's done a lot of television, movie, and she did work in Hey Arnold and episodes of Boy Meets World, to name a few, and of course Baywatch. But I kind of like the Troy McClure.
Right.
But so she's there, and she's like, you know, basically they become. She really does become. She does kind of start out. It does seem like she started out as sort of like her wing girl.
Right.
Because she's like, you know, oh, you know, have you been to the, was it the mall or it was?
She was impressed that Buffy was from L.A.
L.A., yeah. She's impressed with L.A. and she's like, you know.
And she's sort of like a pop culture
quiz about like how frappuccinos are. And how John Tesh is the devil for some reason. And I'm like, because it is kind of interesting because this series looks at the late 90s pop culturally, in which I kind of knew about it, but I wasn't a teenager in the late. We weren't teenagers in the late 90s, so it's kind of an interesting oral history. But so she's like, okay. This is pretty much, you know, kind of how the school works, kind of in the same way that 10 Things I Hate About You worked, but it didn't go into that much detail. you know, where she says, or Mean Girls, because I think every high school kind of has like, it gives the audience, and because we're kind of looking it through the eyes of Buffy,
right?
And then she goes to, she's like, I don't have any books, because that's how they actually meet, is she lets him read off her book in history class, and she basically says, well, why don't you go to the library? So she goes to the library, and it's really spooky, and this librarian named Giles, played Giles, who gives her he's like, I know exactly what you're looking for, and he's very British,
British and proper,
and he's like, I know exactly what you're looking for, and she's like, what do you need? What? And it's this big giant book called Vampires, and it's played by Anthony Head, who plays Giles. He was in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, episodes of Ted Lasso.
Okay.
He was in, episodes of Robot Chicken. He did voice work for Assassin's Creed Gold, which was a video game. He did the voice work for Batman Gotham by Gaslight, and he's done work in Drunk History UK.
Okay.
Just to name a few. But he's like, I've got exactly what you're looking for. And he's kind of like, I think it kind of plays with the creepy librarian. Right. But I'm guessing, and I've kind of known a little bit about the lore. Right. He's sort of her
like assistant.
Yeah,
kind of like supposed to
kind of like her Whistler, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Since we reviewed Blade, Whistler was the vampire hunter that basically helped Blade out.
Right.
So she gets the book, and she's a little bit taken aback.
Right.
And then
because she's sort of she's sort of trying to escape her sort of like, destiny as the Slayer. She's trying to like put all that behind her.
Well, and that was kind of interesting, because I kind of thought when I first got, I thought it would be like they just throw her into being, you're the Slayer, like she already. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, whereas instead of it like being, I'm gonna take a look at Smallville. Smallville, pretty much, he's like, that car hit me at 1,000 miles an hour and I survived. And in Smallville, like I talked about it in the DC thing, he puts his arm into the shredder, into the wood chipper.
Yeah.
And since he's the Man of Steel, he's perfectly fine. So there's kind of that thing, but I feel like with this show, there's sort of like maybe a pre-episode or pre-comic or something, where it's just like she already knows about the vampire.
I sort of like that, because it sort of doesn't take 30 episodes like just like how it became the
vampire slayer. Well, I mean, it kind of would, I think, just to kind of verify it for people that don't. But I think it does. You're kind of right. I mean, verifies it for people that kind of like go, what the hell is Buffy the Vampire Slayer? How is she a vampire? So she's given this book, and she's like, this is the past. I put this in my past, kind of thing. And you're kind of, I mean, it kind of is kind of creepy of Strange Pan giving you a book called Vampires. So the pilot. So then the pilot kind of. The pilot pretty much starts by now we're kind of getting close, kind of into the myth,
right?
A little bit.
And then we also sort of other main characters she's introduced to is Willow.
Willow, which I thought when I first I thought she was Buffy's sister or something. But Willow is played by Allison Hagney. You know her. I'm butchering her name, but her name is Allison. She was in How I Met Your Mother.
Okay.
She was in American Pie.
Right.
I think Allison Hagman.
Okay.
She was in American Pie, How I Met Your Mother, and she's recently been in the Kim Possible live action movie.
Okay.
So, anyway, I kind of, and I like how she's a little bit like kind of the odd girl out.
Right.
When you meet her, she wears real high stockings and a skirt. She's got a skirt. She looks like she's wearing like a school uniform. What was your take on? Let's continue the story and then we'll kind of.
I guess what was the other main? Xander was the other sort of main character.
Xander kind of reminds me of that guy, and he's like you meet him the first time. He's on a skateboard, and we have that meet cute moment where he's like looks gaga over Buffy, and then gets hits by a rail.
Right.
And Xander kind of, and maybe this is a pilot. But I feel like Xander and his character will get a little bit more interesting once the series goes on. But Xander to me kind of felt like a third wheel that you just weren't kind of interested in.
Yeah,
I mean, he didn't really, or he didn't like, when you watch something like I'll get into the OC in an episode.
Right.
But I've seen a couple of episodes in the series. Seth Cohen kind of plays that character as sort of like, or Adam Brody plays that Seth Cohen as sort of like, he's kind of geeky, but he still has this sort of like, he's geeky and nerdy, but he's got kind of enough not sophistication, but likability.
Right.
And Xander, to me, when I first kind of met him, I'm kind of like going, he kind of seems like he's trying too hard to hit on Buffy, if you will.
Yeah.
But he's like, so he's like starts to talk to Buffy. Buffy's like, well, I gotta go and find some classes and all that stuff. And then she drops her steak.
Right.
And he's like, hey, you dropped your steak? What do you.
Right.
And
he's
confused. And then,
so sort of like after sort of meeting all this, it sort of flashes back to the students find the dead body from like the opening of the show where someone's like a vampire kills someone in the high school.
Yeah, it's in the locker room of the girls' PE locker room. Yeah.
And so then sort of Buffy's freaking out about that and goes back and sort of confronts the librarian
Giles. And
right.
Giles is basically like, this is so fascinating.
Right.
And he's gonna, and then you find out that Buffy is pretty much like, look, but you're right. We kind of said that Buffy is sort of,
she's sort of like the reluctant hero.
She's like, I put this behind me, and Giles is like, but this is your destiny, basically. Right. So she kind of puts up the mantle, and kind of reluctantly kind of becomes.
Right. Yeah, I think she's at this point she's still trying to not, she's trying to put that behind her.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. We should keep going with the plot.
Yeah, we can kind of.
Yeah.
Let's kind of
speed through the plot. Yeah.
A little bit.
So after that, she's like, okay, well, it gets a high school show. Now I've got to go to a party.
Yeah, and in every from 10 Things I Hate, there's always a college party that takes place, or not a college party, a high school party.
Right.
And in this one, it takes place.
It looks like in a warehouse.
In a warehouse. No, well.
It looked like a warehouse.
Well, it's kind of
like the grungy 90s stuff.
Grungy 90s stuff. And you've got this band. And I looked up the name of the band. The band is called, what did I say?
I can't remember.
Was like, hold on.
Stinky Biscuit or something.
No, it wasn't Stinky Biscuit. It was, what was the name? Okay, hold on. Welcome to the, Sprung Monkey.
Sprung Monkey, okay. That's pretty close to Stinky
They performed the song Believe. But like they kind of were like this rock band, and I was kind of like going, God, did we listen to that stuff back in the 90s?
Rock and roll.
Rock and roll. What do you think of, And I kind of felt like, it played, because, I watched the pilot for Smallville.
Right.
It did kind of remind me of the way it's set up.
Okay.
As the way the pilot, because in the pilot of Smallville, it's the meteor shower, Clark is arrives.
Right.
15 years later, Clark is, Superman. Or not Superman, but he goes like. So this kind of really, I think once we get into more of the episodes, it goes more in depth, and we'll either be like, this is the stupidest thing, or oh my god, I bought 2 seasons of it. So anyway, so then.
I guess the party. I guess the. Is it Giles? Niles?
Not Giles.
Giles. Okay, Giles is also there.
And you kind of like Giles to me, I would feel very like maybe he's pretending to be the chaperone at the party, but but this wasn't at school, so
no, it's not at the school.
So I mean, it did kind of seem a little.
I guess
go ahead.
I forgot we left out. She has a surprise encounter with a mysterious. I guess we don't know who it is yet.
Yeah,
friend who's like also is telling about.
We find out. I think people. It is Angel.
Spoilers.
Okay. No, but the mysterious guy.
Right.
I kind of knew who it was.
Right.
But I think just because this show's been out since for. The 20 90s. Years.
Right.
24 years now.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like I kind of knew of him.
Right.
But kind of like so let's just say for the pilot's sake, this mysterious guy who is basically been sort of watching Buffy as a guardian of some sort.
Yeah.
And he basically tells her about the.
She says there's gonna be a harvest, and it's all sort of alluding to like there's this spooky stuff under the school.
And the harvest is sort of the like I guess where all the vampires are gonna come and feast on people, I guess.
Drink all the blood.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so. At the party, she meets Willow and tells her, you only live once, and so Willow goes off with a vampire,
which she doesn't know yet.
But she does because of his bad fashion.
Oh yeah, because of her bad fashion. But she goes off with the vampire, and the vampire
takes them to a sort of crypt, and then also grabs. I can't remember the other side characters. It's sort of like Xander's friend.
I
don't think he's not that important.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, so good.
And then we sort of get our first fight with Buffy sort of taking out.
And Buffy kind of holds her own. I mean, for basically, because what I like about the show is we already kind of know that she is
a Slayer.
Yeah,
so she comes up. She sort of is not like. She comes off sort of cocky.
Yeah. Which she comes off cocky, but not. There's a difference between cocky.
Confident. Yeah, I guess.
Well, confident. Cocky is like I feel like when you.
Yeah, I guess I didn't.
Confident
because I guess like more she's sort of like
confident. Cocky is being confident and annoying.
Yeah.
Cocky.
She wasn't that annoying.
She was more confident. Yeah.
Yeah. It's sort of like you would expect from like Peter Parker banter.
Yeah. Peter. Yeah, kind of like Peter Parker, exactly. And so she fights off the girl vampire.
Yeah, she kills the guy vampire.
Yeah, because they're two brothers, or they're brother and sister. I guess they're a couple or something.
Yeah, we don't. But then she's interrupted by sort of like this sort of real big ugly vampire.
Who is he's like in.
He looks like maybe sort of like the evil bad guy's lieutenant. Or
something like that. Well, and maybe once the show.
It doesn't. Yeah, he's not really introduced
that much. So she fights the girl from the beginning of the show, from the beginning of the episode, and her brother, or
I guess we don't.
We don't know. The other vampire.
And then I guess it sort of ends with a cliffhanger with her fighting that guy, and then her friends run off into the graveyard, and then there's bunches of vampires out there. And it sort of ends in a cliffhanger.
So there's a part 2,
right.
which we'll talk about next. So Jay, since this was a part 1, and I didn't know it was a part 1, I thought it was a part 2. What did you think of part 1, or as the show? Were you, I mean, as a pilot and kind of...
Yeah, I definitely liked how it didn't, like, it's sort of like more like her origin was sort of just like, splattered in through the show. Like, you sort of could pick up quickly.
Exactly.
Like, you didn't have to explain everything. It was just sort of like...
And you didn't dumb down the audience where you're like... I mean, I kind of wish they would... I wouldn't say dumb down it, but made it more interesting to, like more... Okay, I'm kind of under... maybe instead of like giving it to us sort of force... spoon feeding us, we're just... They're giving us more and more... they're letting us sort of follow along while we're... I liked it. I thought it was a pretty decent pilot.
Yeah.
For, to explain so much, to get into so much of the lore. One thing is, I guess what we'll do in our third video, since we'll do part 2, we'll come back and kind of talk about how Blade and Buffy sort of are different. But for this one, I liked it. I mean, I think Sarah MIchelle Gellher brought something. There's some spunk to her character.
Yeah.
I think there's spunk to the. I mean, I'm not a big fan. Maybe the guy that Buffy runs, we kind of understand that the guy that the guy has semi-crush on the Buffy.
Oh, the Xander dude?
Xander.
Okay, yeah.
He might grow on me, as the series goes on.
Yeah.
But for the first, I mean, and I think the other thing too is it is the pilot. They're trying to figure out.
They had to cram a lot in.
You got to cram a lot of, with a lot of pilots, you got to cram a lot of expositions. You got to cram a lot. You got to the introductions. You got to. The actors have to figure out their character. They're not going to figure out their character until probably, Josh Whedon, who created this series, had a really good quote where he said, "Your pilot episode isn't your pilot episode. Your first 3 episodes are your pilot episode because it gives you enough time for people to figure out the story." Right. We're right now just figuring out the puzzles to it. But I liked it for what it was. I thought I'm kind of interested in to see if what Cordelia and Buffy's relationship's going to be like. If it's good, they're going to be friends, or if it's going to turn out to be she's going to be like where were you? Kind of like Buffy goes, kind of like the Mary Jane with it, or Aunt May kind of thing, where it's like, where were you? Did you go pick up my, how Spider-Man kind of shows up and
he's come up with excuses.
Come up with excuses. If that's going to be it, if they're going to have something, I liked it. I'm intrigued.
Right.
I'm not exactly hooked. Okay. I mean, I'm hooked, but I'm not I'm getting my feet wet into it. I'm trying to fill out the water. So let's give it. So for our first kind of take on Buffy, we'll kind of go through part 2 on our next video. But for our first episode, I'll give the first episode of Buffy about a solid 7.
Okay.
What about you, Jay?
I think I might give it an 8.
Okay.
I think it did really well of just sort of explaining, sort of like drip by drip her backstory and stuff. And,
I kind of felt like that. I mean, but I'm kind of hungry. But it kind of does leave me hungry for more. And maybe by the time we get to episode 4 and 5, they'll find they probably found their. I mean, it's lasted for 7 seasons. So, anyway, that's our first look at the pilot part 1 of Buffy. We'll do pilot part 2 next week or next episode.
Right.
So take care. I'm Steve.
And I'm Jay.
And my first I will be doing a solo podcast just to keep stuff coming out. and it'll be on.
Are you gonna do the robots or high score?
I think it's high score first, and then Pacific Rim. And I think Jay, I might get you in Pacific Rim. Okay. So I'll do high score first, and then Pacific Rim. Gotcha. So that's signing off. I'm Steve.
I'm Jay.
And that's all, folks. Bye bye.